All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. We're just a bunch of Kiss fans and we talk Kiss. So come along for the ride. You've got nothing to lose. Welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill, and this is the episode we did not want to make. One of the founding members of Kiss has passed on. Ace Frehley died on Thursday, October the 16th. And I'm sure I speak for many of us when I say we are still frickin' processing this news. We are still coming to terms with this fundamental change in reality. A man who fought a lifetime's battle with gravity succumbed to it this week, and that is very sad and in some ways ironic. But we have no agenda for today's show. We've got Ken, we've got Mark, we've got Daniel, and we are just going to talk and listen to our live audience about your memories of Ace Frehley. His meaning to you is obvious that you are here. You are joined with us. We are here because of Kiss. We are here because of the riffs and the playing and the laugh of Ace Frehley. And I just want to stop before we go and just give a round of applause, a bow to the worldwide press, the members and returning members and new members on the KissFAQ message board and people on Facebook for a classy reaction to the passing of an icon. The outpouring of love, the outpouring of grief has really been touching, and I'm glad that Ace is being given that emotional send-off that he rightfully deserves for the contributions that he's made to popular culture, that he's made to music, that he's enriched so many people's life through his music, through his art, through his laugh, through his stories. And I want to also take a moment to offer my sincerest condolences to Peter Criss, to Gene Simmons, to Paul Stanley, to the family members, Jeanette, Monique, the people directly impacted by Ace's life and passing, the people who were with him. And we're just fans. Where I'm sure many of us have shed tears. I cried like a baby for only the third time in 25 years the other day when the news came through and the press release was issued to the major outlets that he was gone. I have not felt like that since I saw my grandmother in the final stages of Alzheimer's and when my son was born. And I still feel that way today, and I'm sure it's the same for many people. Reaction to Ace's passing. Let's just go around the table. Mark, start with you.
Surprised, obviously, as much as everybody else, I'm sure. We all know, Ace's troubles and battles along the way. So while it wasn't absolutely totally unexpected, nobody lives forever, right? But you know how it is when with our our idols or our people who influence us musically, we always think they're going to be here forever. And luckily, and this is one thing that I've always heard, it was a line that has impacted me and affected me in a lot of ways too, is that albums and songwriting is a way to leave a legacy behind. So we're very lucky that Ace has done so much musically, done a lot of records. He'll always be around in music form, and that's something that'll never disappear. So Ace will be with us for forever that way. So I'll be always eternally grateful for that, because some of these records have had a huge impact on me, as I'm sure it has everybody else on this panel and everybody else listening in and watching. I mean, I remember spending lots of time in my bedroom as a young kid trying to lift licks from Rock and Roll Over, trying to figure out Calling Dr. Love or Making Love or whatever it was, and trying to figure out Ace's solos with the the flangers and all these other crazy things that he used to put on. Ace was a big influence on me personally. And I remember getting my first album. My sister Jane bought me Alive for Christmas one year. And it was very, very impactful on me. Not only because of the music, but the imagery as well. Seeing Ace with that makeup and the Les Paul standing in front of a bunch of marshals. Thinking, wow, that was something that was burned in my brain for a long, long time. And obviously, it's one of those things where you say to yourself, I'd like to do that one day. I'd love to be able to play stuff like that, or be on a stage like that in front of all these amps and stuff like that. So Ace always kind of said, impressed that, what was his famous line? If I knew I'd have influenced so many guitar players, I would have practiced more. But some of the beauty of his playing is the fact that he wasn't a huge technical guitar player. He played from the heart, and he played with feel mainly. He was a pentatonic riff player, and there's nothing wrong with that. So was Jimmy Page. So were a lot of blues influenced guitar players. So uh, his playing has affected thousands of guitar players, and I think it'll still continue to do so even more for years and years and years to come. So God rest Ace Frehley, and let's go on to somebody else.
Yeah, Ken, let's get you off mute. You became a fan, obviously, the earliest of all of us, so you've got the most legitimacy in speaking about the full Ace Frehley history with Kiss going back that far. Must hit you hard.
It does hit me hard, and I'm one of those people that it's taking a while to sink in. I know I feel it. It's just a matter of when it's going to really, really hit me. I don't think it really is. I thought it was hitting me the other day. And it was, tough. And but I didn't lose it yet. But I feel something's going to happen here. For me, I'm like a man of few words and stuff. I kind of internalize a lot of stuff. It's grief and that sort of stuff. That may be a good or a bad thing. I don't know, but yeah, it's tough. Ace was a part of the band that got me through life and took me through life. Pretty much most of my life. And to me, he was the best, damn lead guitarist that I knew. Sure, there's people that were more technical, could play faster, do this or that, but he just had this feel and swagger about him, and just the way he moved, and you always thought he was going to fall over on stage. He's leaning back and playing. It's like, how the hell is he standing up still? It's just he kind of defied gravity in lots of ways. So, but he brought a lot of happiness and joy. And that's what I try to think about, all the joy that he brought me, especially most of it is the music. All the music that he did with Kiss and outside of Kiss. We were just here last week talking about, his top, post 2000 music. And this is all before this happened. And without that in mind, and it's I know I'm getting older. So I kind of feel, in a way, I try to prepare myself for these types of things to come. It's kind of that way, with my mother. And when she, before she passed, I knew she wasn't in good health, and everyone's getting older and stuff. And you kind of almost try to prepare yourself for the inevitable. And unfortunately, it one day then it just hits, and you're still not ready for it. Anyway, so I love Ace. I love all members in Kiss. Sure, I may say things that I didn't like why Paul did this or that and that kind of stuff, but I love them all. They were, my heroes, my guitar rock heroes, and it's a sad thing that Ace had to go too soon. Still, even though he's in his 70s, and there's a lot of rock stars going. Unfortunately, they all meet, our maker and all that stuff. So yeah, it's tough. It hasn't hit me fully yet, but I'm not happy. I am truly sad, and I just don't know if it's going to really hit me. Later today, tomorrow, I don't know, but I miss Ace. I miss him already, and yes, condolences to his family and friends and everyone else who loved him, and the Kiss Army.
Yeah, we'll be talking about some of the statements put out by the band members, and also going through our first memories, our first interactions as well with Ace. But Daniel, don't let me forget you. What's your take on this?
Well, you kind of mentioned it at the top of the show, but the gravity that used to hold me down just don't exist no more. I think Ace would have a laugh in wherever he is now. That is what seemed to have, gotten the best of him. His bad balance that he always talked about. I have trouble walking. That's another song. So I just think the irony of that is, I can't wrap my head around that. But how do I feel? Well, of course I'm very sad. I didn't think it would end like this, but you can't really prepare for this kind of stuff. What I will remember of Ace, or what I missed most when he left the band, wasn't necessarily his playing abilities. I mean, Bruce could mimic those quite well, but the band lost that sense of humor that he had. He was always such a prankster, and he made a lot of cool jokes, and seemed to be, so straightforward and honest in his opinion. He wasn't the businessman that you can feel that Paul and Gene, they are always thinking about how should I answer this the best way. Ace was kind of straightforward, shooting from the hip, a true rocker, and he was hilarious at times as well. So when I heard the news, I went back and I listened to his solo album, of course, and kind of took some time on my own. But there's a kind of a cool story when I went back to work that morning. Over here, the announcement was made at midnight. So the following morning when I came to school, so the slowest student at school, he came up to me, and I was thinking, well, what's up now? What's the problem? And he put his arm around me and he said, "How is it?" And I didn't get it, but, "Oh, you mean Ace?" Yes. He knew I was a fan. I've been using, a lot of Kiss material in when I'm teaching the students, leaving out words and stuff in Kiss lyrics, and they try to listen and write the correct words. And I always talk about Kiss, and when I have art, I draw Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley for them. So he put his arm around me, he's a 10-year-old kid. "How is it, Daniel?" So he understood, the slowest kid at school, he understood that this was affecting me. And then later on, I met one of the parents at school, and he said, "Why are you here today? Shouldn't you be at home grieving?" So people seem to understand that this was quite important to me. And of course, it was a very sad day. But over here in Sweden, the media treated it perfectly. In the biggest papers, there were a lot of articles, and they treated it respectfully. And yesterday there was a radio show on the biggest national radio channel here in Sweden. 3 hours, people calling in and talking about what Ace meant to them, and Kiss and Ace. And I was perplexed listening to it. But I was thinking, well, a lot of old people will call in. I recall one of them was 14 years old. I mean, she was born like in 2010. It was a girl as well. And she said, "Well, I became a guitarist because of Ace Frehley."
A post-anomaly Ace fan.
Exactly. So it was just a beautiful show. 3 hours of bliss listening to that. I wish you could have heard that show, but it's all in Swedish. So, but it was beautiful, and that girl, she talked about some of his songs and what they meant to her and how it had made her play the guitar. So that's something to keep in mind, that this probably won't stop. Ace will continue to influence youngsters, and the music will live on forever.
His legacy is secured. The legacy of all of KISS and its members is secured.
Yeah, that's a classic laugh.
I want to hear some of those throughout this show, because it needs to be a celebration, not just a wake. Because, you know, life is vibrant. Ace was larger than life. Ace was a character, and we've seen in the comments, Ace was the party, the life of the party. He was aloof. He was casually, he was laid back to the point of being completely reclined. I mean, what a character he was. I mean, when I first, discovered KISS in 1985, I didn't know about the makeup. I didn't know about Ace Frehley specifically, but as I started diving into the hit paraders, the circus magazines, the rock rags of the time, what I did discover is that Ace was coming back. Ace, who was the foundation of everything I was listening to, was going to be launching a solo career. So my fandom is very much rooted in the excitement of that period when Ace was going to be returning, the return of the comet. Frehley's Comet was about to be released, at the same time I was buying my first new KISS album. So I'm very much tied up with the solo Ace, because that's where my fandom started, and I didn't experience like Ken Alive 2 or Dynasty or any of the period where Ace left the group. So I have a really weird outlook of Ace. Mark, your first experience of Ace Frehley specifically, because you're a mid '80s, come along fan as well, though you do have an older sister who introduced you to, the real KISS.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's put it this way: the first album that really got me into KISS, because like I said, my sister got me Alive for Christmas, and that was when I was much younger. She got that for me. But when I was already up and about and playing and, starting my first band and stuff, the first album that reintroduced me to KISS and got me really gung-ho on them was Asylum, just like you, Julian. That was my, introduction proper to them. And I really loved that album. And then, of course, once you get into it, you can't help but to fully indulge into everything else and go backwards and stuff like that. And where it really started hitting for me as far as Ace was concerned was my friend Ted. He used to take me, me and him used to always go to these KISS conventions here in Toronto. And he was big on, buying audio stuff and stuff like that. But I got big into getting the video stuff. I'm not a huge collector of it, but at that point I bought a lot of video. Winterland, Houston 77, Cobo Hall, the second night, and stuff like that. And when I started seeing like that, Cobo Hall show to me is still one of my favorite shows. When I watched that show, it has such an impact on me. Just that whole show is perfect to me, beginning to end, and his performances are fantastic. And what I love too is like, as I started getting more and more different kinds of shows in my collection, Ace's guitar solos would be sort of similar, but he would always improvise certain things here and there. It would never be totally the same. And that's one thing I always kind of loved about his solos, that if something went wrong, like in one of the videos, he snapped the string right at the beginning of one of his solos and it didn't phase him at all. He just kind of moved the string out of the way and continued and played. And I thought that was very cool for somebody who gets slack sometimes for not being professional. That was a very pro thing to do, to not let that derail you. He kind of took it in stride, did a cool pose with the string broken, and just continued playing, right? And it was great. I mean, my first personal interaction with Ace was one that I wouldn't consider it being the greatest first interaction with him, but it still makes me smile every time I think about it. Is I went to go see my friend's band, Kevin. He had a band and they were opening for KISS. They were opening for Ace at this club called the Hot House in Toronto. And Ace was at that time, no solo record, no nothing. He was just doing one of his solo tours, and they were getting ready to have Ace come on, and I wanted to make a quick bathroom run before he started. Right, nothing worse than having to go when he's already on stage. I ran into the washroom and was greeted to a stunned Ace and his manager there by the sink, looking at me and going, "Hey man, get out!" Like they literally tossed me out because they were preparing Ace to go out on stage at that time. So I only got to say, "Hey Ace," I just gave him a little wave and he kind of just nodded, and I got ceremoniously booted out of the bathroom at that time. But it still makes me chuckle, that whole incident, because it was so rock and roll. It was so Ace at that moment, right? I mean, later on, you get to see about, NAMM and all these other kind of things, little, there's, comic book conventions and stuff like that. So there's always chances to meet him and come up and see him. But that was totally a sort of unexpected rock and roll thing to have happened to me. And I was pretty young. I was like 20 years old when that happened. And so I was starting to get introduced to the backstage wonders of the rock and roll life. And it totally was a fantastic memory. I mean, no matter how it looked or however, and how other people might have taken it. Because I know some people, when I tell them the story, they're kind of like, that's not, they take it, they would have took it personally, but I didn't take it personally. I thought it was fantastic that, I got to see with my own eyes the whole backstage world, and I got kicked out by Ace Frehley and his crew, so that was great.
Nice. I want you guys to start thinking about a question that I am going to ask later, and it is to pick your one, Ken, no ties, quintessential Ace Frehley song, and it would be anything whatsoever as long as it's Ace Frehley related, and don't pit Bret Michaels' redo of Nothing But a Good Time that Ace played a solo. Ken, your first impressions of Ace Frehley rather than just enjoying Kiss?
Yeah, originally, he seemed the most mysterious kind of, because Gene and Paul were pretty much the lead singers out front, when I got into them in the late 70s. And you didn't hear too much even about Peter too, but Ace was the one that did not sing until, Love Gun, when he sang Shock Me. And to me, he was kind of a mysterious kind of player. But I loved all these guitar solos he kept coming up with which were songs within the song, so catchy. And it's just I don't know. I think I didn't even meet him until later on, way later on, in the 2000s. But he's always been a mystery to me in a way. But I always enjoyed what he did, and he always felt like, he was the spaceman. He was truly the spaceman because he was always out there. Like you said, he was always laid back and everything, with what he was, his humor. You never saw him mad. I'm sure he got mad, but you never saw him. He was always, just took life as it, came. So yeah, it's just, he's always been mysterious. I think the mystery, of course, went away after the makeup came off, and then he started doing interviews and things, and you started seeing his real personality, which was a great personality, funny, great laugh, the whole thing. Seems like always a good guy, and he was actually truthful. He didn't BS, I guess you could say, like some other maybe members would do. So yeah, he's just, again, always been mysterious, especially at the beginning to me. But over time, less mysterious.
Yeah, you nailed it. Mysterious. That's kind of what I got as a 85 fan, not knowing much. He wasn't present. He wasn't in interviews. It was just legacy stuff in the magazines for me. Daniel, but don't let me forget you. Your first impressions. Again, you're another mid-80s Kiss fan. So we come from a similar place, but do we have a similar story?
First time I saw a picture of Ace was in the classic Swedish Kiss magazine called OK. It was a poster from the Creatures era. And I was so taken aback because I thought his costume and makeup looked so cool. So for me, the first thing that happened was actually that I started doodling Ace. I still have, I should have brought them, but I still have, like notepads from when I was 8, 9 years old. And they are filled with Ace faces, trying to get those things right around the eyes when you're 8, 9 years old. I finally perfected it a few years later, but I started practicing already at 8 years old of age. So that's I still remember that poster in the OK magazine. Was a real cool poster from the Creatures era. They actually did, sort of a promo tour of Sweden. Even though Ace really was out of the band, he came along for that tour, and they did some great photo shoots in Sweden. OK, the Swedish magazine, always had the best photo shoots of the 80s, I think, when it came to Kiss. Kiss was really heavily promoted in that magazine. But what happened next? Yeah, I really loved his makeup, and it actually made me... I think Kiss made me really interested in art. They were so visual, and I had a knack for drawing, and it made me. I think it helped me become an art teacher. So I'm teaching art for kids now, and still to this day I try to in some way show them the Kiss makeups. When we do stuff, I try to draw along with the kids, and somehow it always ends up with a picture of Gene Simmons or Ace Frehley at the end. And then I show them, and they ask, "Who is that?" "Well, what the? Don't you know? This is Ace Frehley of Kiss. You need to go and look it up." So it's kind of cool, because the other day one of the kids came up to me and he sang "Heaven's on Fire" to me.
Oh, nice.
He had learned all the lyrics to "Heaven's on Fire," and he sang it to me. This Swedish pupil, he's like 10 years old. He knew it by heart. So it's good to see that the music still can, capture the imagination of the youth.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing to see it live on. And it's not just me. I'm not just this brainwashed, crazy guy that liked Kiss. Because there has to be something about the music. When this 10-year-old kid, he has Spotify, he can listen to anything. And I told him, "Well, I'm really impressed. You know all the lyrics to Heaven's on Fire." "Well, you should hear me sing Under the Gun," the guy said. I think it was so cool. So Ace, I think the makeup, his whole persona, it's so cool, and he was a cool guy. When you follow the band for a few decades, I mean, you kind of feel that Paul and Gene, they're into it a bit because of the money and all of that. But Ace, he was just a rocker. He didn't care about the business side. And I always, appreciated that side of him.
Yeah. There's so much about Ace. And, one of the things I put in the statement for the Kiss FAQ were some stories about Ace. And you've touched on art. Ace designed the Kiss logo. It wasn't the first band logo that he designed either. That was something that he enjoyed doing. He enjoyed doing graphic art in his youth, and later on, he was an early adopter of computer art and graphics, and very much into that. You can see that in the Rock Soldiers fanzine. You can see some of the very early stuff that he did in the Second Sighting album liner notes. Ace was a character, but Ace was more than just a guitar player. he had interest outside of music, and he wanted to express them. He did art shows in the early 90s, I think 94, and he did paintings as well, because some of those are out there. So a very visual guy. We'll talk about favorite costume as well, so thank you for that that question from the audience. First time I met Ace, Mark's already said his, and I was not in a bathroom. I was not thrown. Oddly, I was not thrown out. I was backstage farewell tour, and he stumbled by, and it wasn't appropriate. So it wasn't an appropriate time to stop him, shall I say?
Okay.
So the first time I met him was 2009, and it was Anomaly. Obviously, with the KissFAQ at the time, Tim McFate did the absolutely incredible interview with Ace to promote the Anomaly album, and I went to the record station in San Francisco, 107.7 The Bone, because it was literally 400 feet from my office at the time. So I managed to get in because I was right there, and got to hang out with him while he did his thing on the radio, and he just oozed cool. I mean, he was completely different from that guy who had stumbled by me in 2000, or the guy who I'd seen video from the Ace Bash, and all that. He was alive. He was enthusiastic. Frankie Munoz was there. Derek Hawkins was there. Two very important guys from doing the album. And he was fully engaged with that little group of 10 fans who were in the studio that day. And it was so cool. I've still got the picture behind me. It's signed. And that's all I need from Ace. So that was absolutely incredible. Ken, have you met Ace? Yes, you have. I know you met him with me.
Yeah, we were down at the Gene Simmons vault in Los Angeles, which was the first vault date, and that's where
best one.
Some other, yeah, I guess so. And he showed up there, surprisingly. I mean, there was rumors he was going to show up. I mean, Bruce was there, and Eric Singer was there. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get a chance to talk to him so much, but I got a photo with him. He was nice enough to give me a phone. I can't even remember what I said to him. I probably was so kind of starstruck, like, whoa, finally, meeting Ace in person, which was very cool. So yeah, I got a picture of him. I did post it on my Facebook, but yeah, that was the one time I got to finally meet Ace, and I was glad to at least met him and got a photo with him one time. Sure, I would love to talk to him. I never did any of those meet and greets with him, unfortunately. No, I wish I had, but you only get so much time anyway when you do those. So yeah, that was the one time, but it was worth it.
That was the only time you met Ace. I mean, I was at that event too, and I still love sharing this photo because, again, at the vault thing, he just ambled on in. He made his rounds, and then he socialized, and he just came over, and I was with a friend with my back to him, and he kind of gestured to Ace, so Ace just ambled over. I mean, he was so casual. It was unbelievable, and he just wrapped his arm around me as he's introduced, hey, this is my friend Julian. And Ace just like looked at me and said, hi, Julian. Typical Ace voice, how you doing? So he just wrapped his arm around me, and he was like a human slinky on my side. He was so warm.
Slinky, is that the thing that,
the wire thing.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
Yeah, it was just, I wasn't expecting that for him just to be like that. So freaking cool. I want to do one other piece of media here as well, because it kind of ties in.
Hi, Ace. Is Julian there?
Hi, Ace. This is Julian. How are you today?
Hi, Julian.
Oh, Julian, you can hear the nervousness in Julian's voice.
Oh, hell yeah, I was nervous.
Yeah, I understand it, of course, but...
I've given a shout out to Tim for that Anomaly interview. I want to give a shout out to Ken Gulick. in 2020, I was recruited to do the liner notes for Origins 2. And that's from the interview I did with Ace to generate those liner notes. And he could not have been cooler. Daniel, have you met Ace?
No, the first time I met Ace was, of course, if you can call it a meeting, Ace was during my first concert in '97, I think, on the reunion era. And I remember vividly trying to catch his picks. You know, if you remember, they went out on those cherry pickers or whatever they're called over the audience.
Yeah.
And he threw picks almost where I stood. And I tried to catch them, but I didn't catch one. But I remember, you know, shooting a photo. I smuggled a camera into the show. At that point in time, you couldn't bring there weren't cell phones and stuff like that, or at least you couldn't take any good pictures with them. So I smuggled a camera inside, and I managed to capture a quite cool picture when he was just above me, flicking pics towards the audience. So that was my first sort of meeting with Ace Frehley. I'm just bummed out that I didn't catch one of those pics.
Yeah, so Mark, was that your only interaction with Ace, that one time in the bathroom?
From what I remember, I mean, it's funny. I was trying to think back to other times. I mean, like I said, I've seen him at other things here and there, but I never actually sat down and talked with him, or like, you know, even did more than hey or whatever. Because I know he's been around at other things here and there that I've went to, like a few of my friends are into the comic book thing, so whenever those were around and stuff like that, or, you know, but that's the one that I vividly remember. So I'm going to just say, just for accuracy's sake, that's probably the one time that I met him.
And look, just as cool there with Ken. How awesome is that?
I have to say, Ken looks pretty cool as well.
And if you look between Ace and Ken's heads, you see the little red and blue hat. That's Ken Sharp.
Ken Sharp back there, right?
Yeah, I would just happen to know that, so that's just too funny. Yeah, we're turning this around from sadness into joy.
Yeah.
First Ace Frehley solo concert that you got to see. I'm going to go first because I didn't get to see him in the 80s because I was in Singapore. And then I was in England, and I wasn't in England in '88 when he was at Hammersmith. I saw Dwight Fry, got to see that show, and I'm jealous. I want that full show released because they did record the whole thing, and it was fully mastered. So that could be a posthumous release from Frehley's Comet, and I want it, and I want it soon, please, very much. So 90s, I'm in England and Scotland, so I didn't see any of the solo band stuff, which I lived vicariously through bootlegs. I traded Frehley bootleg shows like a madman. I wanted everything. I didn't care. Stone Pony, just give me the shows. They were so good in the 90s as well. So I finally got to see him for the Anomaly tour at the Regency and Ballroom in San Francisco, and it was fantastic. The one thing I remember was it was loud. It blew your head off your shoulders loud. It was double stuffed earplugs loud, and it was fun. It was everything that I had kind of hoped. That band was on fire. So that was my first live experience. We'll talk about best live experience as a separate question. Daniel, let's go to you for your first live experience of Ace Frehley.
Well, of course, it was on the reunion tour, but I never saw him during his solo career. But I remember when he actually came to Sweden to tour when he released Anomaly in 2009. And he made it onto, you know, the biggest sort of TV channel in Sweden, a talk show in Sweden. It was so cool on that show. I still recall it because they filmed him when he was walking out towards, you know, the host through the corridors, and the interviewer asked him, "Well, Ace Frehley, are you nervous now when you're going into the biggest, you know, TV show in Sweden?" he did one of those laughs, and then he said, "I don't get nervous. I make people nervous." And I thought that was so cool. It was so cool when it went out there, and the interview went great. And I think that's Ace. He was it was just cool, really cool. Not like Paul Stanley trying to act cool. He was cool and he was funny and he had all the traits to make him, a character that you liked. So I thought that was a great interview that he did back in 2009. But of course he crushed it during the reunion show in 1997. So, it was a cool guy.
Yeah, so he went all the way to Sweden.
Yeah,
And you didn't go. Wow.
I'm not a real fan, I guess.
Oh yeah, you are. Everyone's a real fan. And Ken, come off mute before you talk about your first Ace Frehley show.
Yeah, I was just looking. I think it was the first Ace Frehley show, other than, of course, with Kiss. Does that count? 79, of course. Dynasty concert at the Cop House was the first real one, but the solo or away from Kiss was back in the mid 80s when he was with Frehley's Comet at the time. I saw Frehley's Comet come through. I think they came through in Oakland, and at that time, I believe they opened for, I think they opened for Y&T on that one. So that was the time I finally saw, I had to go, because Ace, hadn't done anything since it's really 79. And then it took a while for a solo album to come out, Frehley's Comet. And then so the first chance I got was when they came out and played in Oakland. And like you said, it was very loud, even in that arena. I think it was at the time it was called, maybe now it's called the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center. But yeah. So it was still, whenever a Kiss member was part of or Kiss themselves, it always was a lot louder than anything else back then. But yeah, it was great. It's kind of a blur, but I don't remember the set list without going back and looking at it. But I know I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yep. So best live experience of Ace, and for those of you who haven't seen him often in concert, if you just want to just talk about the live moment on tape or in person that means the most to you and why, and while you think about that, I think my most important live moment with Ace, and I'm glad I got to see him in 2025. I went down to the Whiskey. I nearly did not do that.
Yeah.
I got a booth for me and Ken. Got to see Ace after the show and show him the book and sit with him for 10 minutes or so before the signing. So that's a very powerful one, but that's a little bit too raw. Musically, it's when he came back around. The band lineup had shifted. I can't remember which tour it was. It may have been 2014. But Richie was back. It was Spaceman was back in the group. And that one for me hit on multiple levels. Talking about those bootlegs in the 90s, there was something I always liked about how the band sounded with Richie as his guitar twin. There was a foil. It was like there were two Keith Richards guitar dueling on stage, and they seemed to have this symbiotic telepathic connection between each other about what they were playing. So getting to see both of those guys going at once, and the rest of the band was fantastic as well. I think Chris Wise was on bass at the time, and I don't remember who was on drums. I'm sorry, drummer. I think it was Scotty. It was just, again, it was powerhouse. It was wild. It was teetering on that brink of insanity that Richie kind of brought to it. I mean, if you think that Ace Frehley had a rock and roll, hard rock credibility to him with his sound, his playing, his attitude, then Richie was the perfect complement to him on stage for what I enjoyed musically. It wasn't perfection. It was rock and roll. It was alive, and it had attitude. So mine, Richie Scarlett, live in concert as part of the Ace Frehley band. Also saw him at Jackson Rancheria. I think that was the first time. So that might well be it. Ken, go to you next.
You're muted.
You're muted.
God.
You need
Well,
You need a T-shirt saying you're muted.
there's a
I'm muted.
lawnmower. There's a guy mowing the lawn here. I just didn't want to get in. Anyway, it's got to be the first time seeing Ace live, which was 1979. Yeah, I saw him again when on the reunion, and other times, but it's got to be the first time. I mean, if it was the first time seeing Kiss and the first time just the whole Vegas style Spaceman outfit that he had with the cape coming out with the cape at the beginning, and that sort of thing. It was just so wild, and seeing him play the smoking guitar on stage, the whole bit, and then putting the guitar on the little hanging thing, the guitar goes up and it makes that reverbing sound and so on. It was just so awesome. And him shooting the like the sparks, rockets out of his guitar. I have a picture for our podcast. I used that one picture of him shooting for this episode, which is just, that's so Ace. It's so, it's part of his signature of his guitar playing. And, he's the only guy that, he was, I'm sure it was done a lot before, but he did a little, always the way he used the toggle switch on his guitar. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I was like, I've never seen anybody do it. I'm sure people did it before.
Eddie did it, yeah.
He really did it, more than other people did it. Really used it, effectively within a song or within a solo, and the way he, would bend his strings and all that kind of stuff. It was the, first time seeing Kiss, first time seeing him. It was all the best. It was just a great time.
Daniel, favorite live moment?
Yeah, it just blows my mind, all the memories that you can read in the comments. I mean, people.
I can't keep up with them today.
I mean, we're closing in on 200 viewers live now, so it's impossible for you to keep up on all the comments. But I think it's great to read all your comments today. Great comments, and people seem to have seen him everywhere. Some people say that when I saw him in Australia, when I saw him on the Dinosaur Tour and so on. For me, it was, of course, the reunion show. But I have to tell a little story. I recall, a big press conference in Sweden when they returned. The reunion was in full force. People were going crazy. Suddenly, everyone loved Kiss. That wasn't the case a year or two earlier. I have to tell you, I felt pretty alone. But during the reunion era, in Sweden and in the Nordic countries, people went totally nuts about Kiss. So they were selling out left and right, and people liked them. So they had this big press conference for all the Swedish media. And then one of the journalists asked the band, well, you guys, are you recording any new tracks? They asked them. And this is what I love about Ace. He just didn't care. So Gene and Paul were thinking about, how should we approach this? How should we answer this the right way? And Ace just said, yeah, cocaine tracks. I think that's so funny. He didn't care. And that's total rock star, total Ace Frehley. That was missing a bit in interviews when he wasn't in the band. That sense of humor and,
unfiltered.
Off the cuff. Yeah, exactly. So that's a cool memory of Ace when he returned to Sweden in '97.
All right, Mark, your turn for your favorite live memory of Ace.
Okay, well, before that, just really quickly, my first one, because I didn't get to say that. The first one was Hot House. That one, the bathroom toss out. That was my first Ace appearance, like a show that I ever saw of him. Interesting show, very loud, like you mentioned, Julian, ear bleeding levels. And it was fun, getting to see him the first time. But my favorite one that I saw, hands down, easily, and it will always be my favorite Kiss, Ace Frehley performance, was the Toronto show on the reunion tour. I was fortunate, I thought, because the Toronto show was rather early on in the docket for the reunion tour. And at that point, everybody was clicking. They were well gelled. They were taking it all very seriously. And I'll never forget the performance of Rock Bottom they did. That when he came out with the double neck guitar and played that opening bit with Paul. I mean, they did that so well together. I mean, I think they were even shocked, like the look they gave each other when they were done. It looked like, wow, we did that really good kind of look on their faces. And that night he was good. I mean, Ace has a tendency sometimes of missing notes here and there, or being a little flat on his bends and this and that. This is just technical talk for me, which is neither here or there or neither important. But at that night, though, everything was pitched perfect. Everything was played really well, and it all had feel to it. It was like, I really, really enjoyed that performance. I mean, I enjoyed it so much that I went and there was a guy in Toronto that every weekend he had this little table at the corner of Yonge Street, and he sold bootleg concerts on VHS. You can tell how old this was, VHS tape. And I hunted him down and purposefully went there to look to see if he had that Toronto show on VHS, and he did. And I have it in my shelf back there. And I mean, that's how big the show was to me in my memory. I want to find it back like a few weeks after that show happened. I wanted to have it in my collection, and it was just brilliant. I mean, being already at that point such a long time Kiss fan, and me and my friend Ted there, we both looked at each other and said, wow, like we were like surprised how great that show was. Like we were talking all the way on the subway ride back into Mississauga or the outskirts of Toronto. That whole time we were just talking about little things like that solo. Can you believe how good that was? This and that. I mean, that's when you know it's had an impact on you, when you can spend 45 minutes on a subway ride and not even realize, that time had passed so quickly. Next thing you know, Eglinton, and like already we're here. Like, wow, like that went so quickly. Fantastic show, and like I said, I feel lucky to have seen it because I went and saw them on the Lost Cities tour. It was pretty good, but that was also the infamous show where Ace fell over backwards on his back on the stage, and Gene just kind of looked at him and said, "Leave him there," because his roadie was going to come out. They were kind of fed up or something happened, but already, there were already friction happening later. But I'm so glad I saw that early show, because they were really connected musically. He played excellent, and to have that memory of Ace being so on fire. I mean, even the solo, his individual solo was like spot perfect. I can't remember anything wrong with that. You know what I mean? And for us people who are diehard dedicated Kiss fans, we know that that's sometimes a rarity, and that's fine, because that's we expect that with Ace. He's rock and roll. He does things. He doesn't care about this or that. He just plays from the hip and plays with feel, and that's that. But man, it was like, it's like the spirit of Jimi Hendrix and all these people entered his body that night, and it was just a fantastic show.
A little bit like the Brooklyn, Under the Brooklyn Bridge MTV Video Music Awards performance in '96 was absolutely spectacular. While you guys think about what will be your lasting memory of Ace at this point, I just want to read the band statements that were issued following Ace's passing, and I think these were all very classy and heartfelt. The joint Gene and Paul statement was, "We were devastated by the passing of Ace Frehley. He was an essential an irreplaceable rock soldier during some of the most formative foundational chapters of the band and its history. He is and will always be part of Kiss's legacy. Our thoughts are with Jeanette, Monique, and all those who loved him, including our fans around the world." A lovely statement from both of them there. Paul also said separately on Twitter, and I love this one. Heard it before. I remember in 1974 being in my room at the Hyatt on Sunset in Los Angeles, and I heard someone playing deep and fiery guitar in the room next door. I looked over the balcony. It was Ace. That's my favorite photo of us, and he shared a photo. Also, Gene. It was the hilarious one of I can't put it up here, unfortunately, but Gene also chimed in with a separate one. "Our hearts are broken. Ace has passed on. No one can touch Ace's legacy. I know he loved the fans. He told me many times. Sadder still, Ace didn't live long enough to be honored at the Kennedy Center Honors event in December. Ace was the eternal rock soldier. Long may his legacy live on, and his legacy will live on. At the Kennedy Center Honors, I would expect them to handle it like they did Glenn Frey or Phil Lesh, who both passed away after their respective groups were announced for entry into the Kennedy Center for the honors. Again, that honors is for the group and the living members of the group, but I'm sure because he has passed before the event that they won't turn it into a tribute for him, but I'm sure they will mark his passing. Finally, and not least, a very heartfelt message from Peter Criss. With broken heart and deep, deep sadness, my brother Ace Frehley has passed away. He died peacefully with his family around him. My wife and I were with him at the end, to the end as well. I love you, my brother. My love and prayers go out to Jeanette, Monique, Charlie, and Nancy, and all of Ace's extended family, bandmates, fans, and friends. May the Lord comfort you at this difficult time. As a founding member of the rock group KISS and in Ace's solo career, Ace influenced and touched the hearts of millions of people. His legacy will live on in the music industry and in the hearts of the KISS Army. At this time, I ask all of you to please be respectful to Ace's family and allow them to grieve privately. I mean, you couldn't strike a better tone. I don't think there's anyone who could possibly criticize any of those messages. And again, I applaud KISS for the pure class that they showed their fallen band member.
Yep.
Lasting memory that you will take away, and then we'll do favorite song and costume. So, hey, he's off mute.
Hi, Curly.
Ken.
Lasting memory is more like lasting memories. It's just him, all the videos, all the music of him, all his guitar solos throughout, especially the 70s guitar solos that he had on so many songs that were so great. I mean, it can't be touched. And the reason that when Tommy Thayer came in, that's why they didn't let him play his own version of solos. Those solos are so ingrained in those songs and so great that Tommy had to play them note for note because that they were that good, and that when you play one of those songs and it's not the same solo at all, it's like it's wrong. It's just wrong. Those solos are so good and so melodic. So it's the music. It's the videos. I can see him playing, or when I saw him live. But the videos that we can go back and watch, whether it's Kissology or anything on YouTube, it's all there. We can still celebrate and enjoy Ace. I'm able to enjoy Ace forever. He'll forever be in it's part of me. It's part of KISS and everything else. So it's it. It's more about the music. It really is.
Yep, 100%. Daniel, your lasting memory, or what you think it'll be at this point?
Well, of course, the solos, some of his songs, and his personality. I always loved his laughter and his sort of shoot from the hip mentality in interviews. I think that was relieving when listening to a KISS interview. And actually, I will cherish that moment when he went kind of, rogue during the reunion. The farewell tour. I think it was in Japan or Australia during the final leg of that show, that tour, when he started playing his own stuff and Jim went nuts. I think that was such a cool moment because, as we all know, a KISS show is very,
Structured.
Yeah. You can't stray away too much. Ace just didn't care. He started playing a medley with Rocket Ride and stuff like that. And after a while, you could see, like the smoke coming out of the ears of Gene Simmons. And he said, well, what does the Ace Frehley band want to play next?
Yeah.
And to most people, that would have meant, well, I shouldn't play anything more. And then he went right into another song, Ace. I think that's so cool. And that is a little bit where I think Kiss was lacking when Ace left the band. Kudos to Bruce and all those people, but, they were team players. They were safe. Ace added some sort of, you didn't know really what could happen. It was exciting. It was a bit dangerous, so to speak. So I always felt the band lacked that when Ace left the band. But then I have to mention some of his solos. God damn, he had made some great solos. Deuce, the solo to Deuce, I love the solo for Deuce. Parasite, such a great solo. And it's been said before, but it's the truth. Ace's solos were like songs within the song. And especially on those, I think, early albums, he made some real classic solos, and he has influenced so many. I think people don't understand how many guitarists that Ace really influenced. I mean, really over here in Sweden, everyone around, 40 plus that plays in a band, it all started with Kiss for them. I mean, like 80-90% of the guitarists in the bigger bands over here, well, I heard Alive, and then I wanted to become a guitarist. Mm-hmm. So the influence is kind of, can't really be measured, but you have to understand the impact he had on rock and roll. And I think he's the most popular member of Kiss. I think he's more popular than Paul and Gene, and he will always be remembered as one of the best 70s guitarists. Even it won't be technical, but the feel, creating a solo that you remember. I mean, Mark St. John, that wasn't Kiss, he was probably better technical guitarist, but he couldn't compete with the feel of Ace's solo. So I would remember the solos in some of the great songs like Parasite and Cold Gin and Rocket Ride, and I will cherish the memory forever.
Mrs. B, melodies in his solos. His solos told stories, didn't they? So I just want to thank everyone in this live chat right now. I mean, you guys are awesome. This chat is just spinning around like a carousel right now with everyone chiming in with their memories.
Great comments.
I'm just smiling here so much because of the comments you guys are making. So if I've not been able to get your comments up into the live feed, I do apologize, but I am reading them and they are affecting me. So Mark, your abiding memory of Ace, what do you think it's going to be?
Well, for me, it's pretty simple. I mean, the thing is, like I said, I was collecting a lot of Kiss videos and a lot of, things from the past and watched and got really into the original era and even the later stuff. I was very much into. I was into all eras of Kiss, but the original one had such a interesting vibe to them when I watched them and stuff. But I was again very grateful to have seen them during that reunion tour and that show. And the reason why that'll always, and the one moment specifically that'll always be my highlight moment is that I always saw Ace's solos for the most part on video. And when they showed that, when I got the Dynasty show and he started doing the stuff with the rockets hitting the stuff in the lighting grid and stuff like that, I always thought that was cool, right? And when I was there to see him do that solo in person really had a great effect on me. I remember it's like everything kind of just stopped around me when he came up and started doing a little, and they added that pitch shift to it. It was, and it got all crazy, and then whoosh, and the rocket when he knocked out the light, and they had this hanging par can and just sitting there, just dangling by the cable, and all of a sudden just whoosh, dropped onto the ground. I was like, wow. I mean, knowing now that it's all kind of staged to do that, I was almost at one point believing that wasn't supposed to happen. I was like, wow, was that really supposed to drop down like that? because it almost looked dangerous, like where it dropped and stuff, right? But that whole thing, because even seeing Ace's smoking guitar on video was one thing, but to see it in person, having that happen, has a different effect on you. Like, wow, I'm actually here when he's doing that. Like it, and I've seen him do it in clubs before, and sometimes it worked well, sometimes it didn't work well. But on these shows, it was such a huge impact the way the lighting hit him when he did it, and then when he would hook up the guitar and it would go fly off into the lighting grid. Those kind of moments. I was so used to seeing them on video, but to be there and to see it all happen live in Technicolor, as they say, it was just one of those moments that'll be forever stuck in my mind. Just seeing the rockets go off, seeing the smoking guitar, seeing the guitar going off into space. I mean, those were all things that were so closely attached to Ace Frehley, and to see them firsthand was just amazing.
All right, Daniel, you can catch up on Mark's comments later. Make sure you do, because they're good. Mine, I was sitting there with the FAQ turned off. I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And when I saw the notice hit on Variety and Rolling Stone, I burst into tears and I sobbed, and I'm trying to post the statements on the FAQ, get my statement up on the FAQ, and unlock the board so that the fans could recongregate. The first thing I did after that was go to YouTube. And what popped up was a 1-minute laugh track of Ace. I started that sobbing, snotting all over the place, and ended it with a grim smile on my face. That was the perfect medicine at that moment for a reaction to the news that he was gone, was his laugh track. To hear that cackle, to hear him laughing himself into deeper laughing and then laughing at his laughing, because it was just infectious. It was signature. It was out of this world. And my lasting memory of Ace today, when asked about it, is going to be Tom Snyder.
Yeah.
I've got another one as well, which I want to tack on at the end. But that whole moment where the two street guys, the two credible guys who had done the grind in the clubs and had the experience in the band, versus the two who had vision and drive and business oriented, the two halves of that band flipped that day. And to have Ace and Tom Snyder feeding off one another in that laugh loop, it is just one of the greatest moments in history, period. And Ace is at the center. He's the event horizon that day, that moment of everything that is going on. So to me, that laugh, that scene, I'll be watching. I watch it every Halloween. I'm going to be watching that on Halloween for sure for the rest of my life. But with more meaning now for both Peter and Ace. Ace's laugh there, the day that those two guys had the camera on them, and Peter's like, "Oh shit, what's going?" And Ace is just going, he's going higher and higher. The other moment is a little bit more serious, and it's Ace's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech, where he addresses sobriety and addiction in such a classy and meaningful manner that I think he gave a very valuable message on that platform at that day, that addiction isn't something to be ashamed of, that sobriety is a battle that people who don't ever face those demons can never understand. And he used that platform in order to give legitimacy to those who fight that step by step, day by day battle. And yeah, there have been a lot of shots taken at him in the years between leaving the group and afterwards. But rather than using it negatively, he used it positively. And I don't doubt that that inspired some people who are still here today who would not otherwise be. And that's a meaningful contribution to the world. So that and Tom Snyder, two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
we're going to be moving on in a couple of minutes to talk about the other news from the week. Let's wrap up this memorial for Ace, the celebration of Ace, with your favorite song. Daniel, you've had enough time to think about it. Commit to the choice. Make it.
Well, as a youngster, I was so taken aback by this track on an early album. It's on Hotter Than Hell, an album that has gotten a lot of critique for the way it sounds, but this song sounded just right. There were loads of parts in it that, boggled the mind. How did he do that? But they weren't that hard to learn. So I kind of mastered the song pretty, early in my guitar playing career. And as a, garage band, we managed to make this sound pretty cool. We never managed to hit, the spot when it comes to the solo. Ace was just too good for that. But the rest of the song was kind of easy to mimic because it was such a great song. And my favorite song of all time when it comes to Ace Frehley is Parasite. It's such a, an early heavy metal song, I would say. Quick, hard, and I also enjoy the way Peter Criss drums on it. And if you want to go on YouTube and watch a great version in honor of Ace Frehley, you can go and watch Winterland 75. Ace and Peter, going wild on that song. And I love that song. So that's my favorite, actually, Parasite.
Didn't Frankenstein do a redux of Winterland? I think he did. I think he made it look really good and improved it as well. All right, Mark, you're up next with your pick.
For me, it's pretty simple. Rocket Ride has always been my go-to
good one
Ace song. To me, it has everything that I've always loved about Ace. The effect, the flanger, phaser, that, and one of the rare times you'll ever hear Ace Frehley with a wah pedal in a solo. I don't think that he's done it very often after that point. And it is one of the more lengthier guitar solos that he's done in a song, which is good. And it's all of it is memorable. All of it is well constructed and written. The biggest shame about that song is that Kiss never played it with them live. I mean, just the thinking behind it, I just don't understand why they wouldn't have played such a fantastic song like that live with them. Sure, he did it in solo times and stuff like that, so it's great in that way. But seeing Ace do it with Kiss would have been, I think, really, really fantastic. But that to me, whenever somebody says to me, what Ace song should I listen to first, I always kind of steer them to Rocket Ride.
Excellent pick. All right, Ken, this will be interesting. Which tie is it?
Yeah, I know. There is a lot of songs that I like. Ace, they were great. But I gotta go with from my first Kiss album, Alive 2, that I bought. It's got to be Shock Me, the live version of Shock Me, which includes the guitar solo and the whole bit. It's just, over the top. And that song, was his first vocal. That was my first time ever hearing Ace sing as a lead, was that song. And I thought his voice was kind of, was different. It almost sounded like a little kid to me in a way back then. His voice had matured later a little bit more, but that song and the riffs are just so Ace type riffs, because his songs, when he writes a song, his riffs are this kind of different style that he has. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of a little off, in which Ace is a little off in some ways, out there, outer space, and that's how his riffs are sometimes, but they work. They actually work. But yeah, Shock Me, classic song. The live version is great. The whole soloing that he would do as part of the live performance of that it was just awesome. So I'll just say that one shocked me.
I'm going to his 1978 solo album. It's Rip It Out. It's the one Ace Frehley song that I performed live in Nashville and
Yeah,
on the Kiss
I remember
Cruise
that.
Jam session. And there's a reason why I love it. The attitude. I mean, it could have been on Rock and Roll Over because it was written in '76, and they already knew they were doing the solo album, so he kept that one in his pocket to get ahead of the curve. He wasn't writing a lot of songs, so it made sense for him to do it. But there's just something about the attitude, the just the everything about it. I mean, it's, you could go with Hard Times, you go with Save Your Love, you can go with Talk to Me, you can go with Rock Soldiers, you can go with so many songs in his catalog. But right now, today, Rip It Out, you wanted it. That is my pick because it so well sums up his gritty attitude, and it comes from an album that he worked his ass off on and really rose to the occasion and exceeded expectation, because that 1978 solo album.
That's really an interesting question there.
What was
From
the question?
Killer Dude. I mean, Killer Dude, or was it Killer Dude 35? Here's another question, guys. What is your favorite Fractured song by Ace? Well, I guess it's easy to go with the first one, but I actually really appreciate the one on, I think it's Trouble Walking. You know,
Fracture 3, John Reagan.
Is it? Yeah, that's my favorite, I think, because it feels like, you know, you go with Ace on the right, and you know that whole album is about the problems, you know, being an addict, going through difficult times, and that song always felt like, you know, some sort of post life song. You know, you go into space, you go to maybe another place, and I think it's really fitting for the times now. So that's my favorite, the one on Trouble Walking. I don't know about you guys.
I love it, but Rodrigo mentioned, I think it's Fractured Quantum from Anomaly. Just the amount of guitar layers there. I mean, it was 20, was it 20 years later? What was it in 2009? It was long on from when he did this, the original Fractured Mirror, but he managed to get back in that headspace of creativity on Anomaly for the instrumental, and he knew that it was integral to returning as a solo artist to have a stunning instrumental on that album. So we've just done an interview with the engineer for that, and just the amount of work that went into recording that track. So that's fresh in my mind today. So I'm going with that pick. Mark.
I've always had a soft spot for the original one. I've always thought that I've heard that song so many times in different moments in sports. I mean, and sometimes it ends up being that song. Other times it just ends up being another song that sounds very similar to it. But that whole beginning to Fractured Mirror is so memorable. I could have sworn I've heard it once on a Stanley Cup game, where they put it in between when they were walking around with the cup.
Yeah, I think you heard Alan Parsons' project.
Yeah, it could be that, you know.
That's one that they did.
But I've always had a soft spot for that, and because that whole '78 album is so near perfection. I mean, what a way to end that album.
All right, Ken, you're last.
Well, it's the original one.
Of course.
That was the first, and that was the standard for all the other ones that came after it. I just feel like, you know, that one had never really been topped by the other ones, even though there were some cool ones. I think that was the one. That one is the best for me.
Yes, real quick, Julian, we have to give a shout out to some of the listeners. I mean, this AB guy has been commenting. His comments have been great for years now, and I actually enjoy Mrs. B. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but most of the ones listening to this is a guy or guy, so I guess it's a guy. Great comments, and keep them coming. It's great.
Yeah, and Declan Morrison as well. You know, thank you, everyone. On October the 16th, we started the day off with joy. The announcement of the Dress to Kill Super Deluxe Edition. And then the day went downhill rapidly with the news about Ace. We're flipping that around. We're tossing that coin out. We're flipping it around, and we're starting off with Ace's sad news, and we're turning it back now just to wrap up this show with a little bit of a discussion about the announcement of the 50th anniversary Super Deluxe edition of Dress to Kill. It's long overdue. It's currently available exclusively on Kiss Online. One of the things that's not been detailed that I am going to attempt to decipher, I've spent hours with this magnified trying to figure out what all the hotkeys and items are within the box set. So inside, obviously, it's how many? 107 tracks, 78 total unreleased. There's currently an error on streaming platforms with the second disc of Kobo missing from that. So don't worry, it is the full show. That does start with Rock Bottom. There's the original 1975, newly remastered by Bernie Grundman. Bernie Grundman, if you have not heard of his name, mastered Thriller, Purple Rain, Aja. He also worked with Asia, whatever. I don't. Asia. We had a dog.
It's a continent.
A lot of records.
Yeah, we had a dog in Scranton when I lived in a communal house, and it was Aja. So there we go. Okay. I'm not changing. So Bernie Grumman's also done Dr. Dre and Tupac. So he's got a broad, group of artists that he's mastered material for. I'm sure people know, other people like Robert Ludwig and Alan Zenz, but he's in a similar sort of category. 23 unreleased demos make up the second CD, including alternate mixes and studio outtakes. And if you're a member of the exclusive channel, I did a breakdown of that single that came out, and I'm calling some of them new mixes of old demos. 2 complete concerts, newly mixed by Eddie Kramer, Kobo 75, and the show 1 from the RKO Orpheum in Quad City. Blu-ray audio, including the 2 promo films newly transferred from 16mm film. These are non-Loomis, so they should be better. A 100-page hardcover book featuring new interviews from Gene and Paul, with lots of photos and lots of memorabilia. A new issue of the Gotham Rock City News, which is what I look forward to in particular. And then all these collectibles that we just streamed down my list I've made. A recreation of the 75 press kit and band bio, press photos, the Dress to Kill sticker, that's the thing with the golden border. Kobo ticket stub, New York State license plate. Let's see.
License plate. Wow.
Japan printout, Kobo Arena poster. Glossy photos, die cut magnet sheet, 4 band member double-sided coasters, hotel key fob. Now, see if anyone remembers why that might be in there. Album cover lenticular, bumper sticker. A die cut double-sided mobile. That comic at the bottom is the 1970. I thought it was 74, but I guess it's 75. Cream magazine comic, and that's a litho recreation of that. 2 iron-on patches, 4 prism foil buttons, and 4 white pearled guitar picks. And it's available on CD, which you can see here, and it's available on vinyl. And the vinyl version comes with a slip mat of the album cover, and the prices are actually, the vinyl pricing is brought way down. Versus what they were for the Creatures and Destroyer releases, which were after the fact. So what's your reaction to the content? Everyone was saying it was an Alive 50 box set coming out. Yeah, you guys are wrong. What's new? You want to guess, you got a 50-50 chance. Ken, start with you.
Yeah, it looks like they kept with the same theme of the prior 2 box sets and what they're providing with it, and but the most important thing I think is obviously the music and the stuff that we haven't heard. The remixed stuff would be interesting. Well, remastered too. Bernie Grudman, is known for his mastering, so I'm hoping that will be pretty darn good. It should be. I guess it's from the analog tapes, so from what it said too, which is surprising. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't, the prices. I think it's great that the price for the vinyl it's still kind of high in a way, but it's at least a lot lower than the prior two. The prior two were
insane,
crazy, and you know what? And I don't know why they don't lower those now to try to match this, because they seem outrageous and they haven't come down in price. So it's just kind of crazy to me. So otherwise, it doesn't look like it's limited or anything. I think they have the picture disc. We didn't talk about the rest of it, but there's the picture discs, which they offered 1,000 now versus what they've been doing was 500. So they lasted into the second day of for people who didn't have VIP access. But there's a colored vinyl, which looks a little different too, which is an option also. I think it's limit 2 per customer. You can order 2 at a time. So yeah, I don't know. The vinyl doesn't say limited. Did it say limited, Julian? I don't think it said limited. So
Sorry, that flew by too fast.
Yeah, but I think on that one, the vinyl one, I'm going to see if the price comes down a little bit, and it's a good chance I'll get it.
Let's see.
I got the CD version, so I'll just say that I bought the CD version.
That doesn't say
that's the color disc is different. Yeah, it's a little weird.
3,000 copies.
Yeah, the picture disc is already sold out, by the way, but the premium color vinyl limited to 3,000 units worldwide.
Right.
So, question from, I think it was Rodrigo, will it be available on stores on October the 24th? So that's another thing. So it went on sale on the 17th and is shipping on the 24th. So that's a super fast turnaround, which is very cool.
Fastest ever.
Yeah, considering how much waiting's been involved.
Yeah, been ready.
It is very cool. So is it going to be available in stores? I don't know. I've seen it available digitally on iTunes, Amazon Music, and on Qbaz, the high-density HD track sites. So at least digitally it's there, but the book is a big part of telling the story.
Like 100 pages of, I think.
100 pages of Dress to Kill for an album that cool. was a rush job that didn't have a lot of additional material available for it other than, packaging it with live shows. That's a lot of content. Here's some of the other product that's just flying by quickly for those who can see it. T-shirts, sweatshirts, all the usual things are available. So, Mark, your take on it. Order now, Mark.
Well, I as you guys probably know, I attempted to get the Destroyer one. There was a huge brouhaha with DHL, and I didn't end up getting it from them. And I just said, fuck it, never bought a box set after that ever, including the Creatures one. But I did get the stuff digitally on like the music end of it and stuff. And good friends sent me copies of the Gotham News and that. So I didn't miss much of the stuff. I mean, but this is the one box set though that the minute I saw it, and you might find this surprising, the minute I saw it, I have nothing bad to say about this box set. I think everything that's in it looks good, looks really well done. Bernie Grunman being involved in it, to me, it's 50-50. I mean, I love Bernie Grunman's work. He's done Pink Floyd records. He's done a lot of rock stuff that we're all very familiar with. All you need to know if Bernie Grunman's done it, look in the dead wax. If you see a BG etched and by hand on there, Bernie Grunman has lacquered it. Doesn't necessarily mean he's mastered it, but he did lacquer cut it, right? But, the man's also in his 80s now, too. How good his hearing is now, who knows? But, still, I mean, his work is still well respected, so I think it's still going to come up good. Will I buy it on vinyl? Probably not, because to me, I still think it's pretty expensive for my price range, being a independent musician who has to pay for house bills as well as other things. But the CD box set is on my radar. Unfortunately, the only thing that makes me really cry, guys, about this is that I'm actually willing to pull the trigger on getting the CD, but Canada Post is on strike here. There's no way for me to probably get this now. So, not because it's not limited, I'm not too worried about not being able to ever get it. But it looks like I'm gonna have to wait on getting this until they work out something with this. God knows when that'll be. And but in the meantime, I'll probably get the digital stuff. But I would love to get the CD one, if just to get the extra sort of information that would be within the book and stuff, right? Those are the things that I mainly would want to get. Otherwise, I'd be satisfied with just the digital version of it. And having heard the release of Burning Up with Fever, it sounded really, really good. I mean, I know, if you compare it to the original, there's probably things we can compare that sound different. And by the way, if you haven't heard Julian's segment on it in the membership area, do take a listen to it. He did an excellent job talking about it, the significance of it, blah, 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 the things that were done to it, etc., etc. Julian always does a top shelf job on these sort of things. So do yourself a favor, check that out, and listen to the song too. It's available on Apple, even in a sort of sample form where you get like a good minute and a half of it.
It's up on YouTube. People can
and there you go. So you can
fully there.
Yeah, so you can hear it in its glory, and it'll be worth getting if just for those alternate versions as well, whether it's digitally, CD, or vinyl. For people who can afford the vinyl, I say go for it. I mean, I might just buy the album separately on vinyl as well when the time comes. But the CD version looks fantastic. Never give up on CD, my friends. CD is a medium that still is worth having. And I think that having this box set is a good option because it'll save you at least half the cost of the vinyl, and you still get a lot of the same tchotchkes and all those other things that Julian brought up. But you don't have to spend a kidney and a foot to get the vinyl. You can get the CD, right?
Yeah, you can spend someone else's kidney and foot. Always. Yeah. Thanks for the kind words about that. The full version of Burning Up with Fever as a single is out on streaming, and it has a scorching guitar solo in it. Absolutely scorching. Ken.
Oh, you already got me. Daniel.
Oh, I've lost track for the first time this episode. I'm
You're doing pretty good until now.
Doing pretty good.
I was doing
That's
good
pretty
there.
good.
Daniel, go ahead.
No, I enjoy the fact that they managed to deliver this kind of box set. I just wish they could do a box set for every album. I'm pretty satisfied with the 1997 remastered version of Dress to Kill. I think that sounds great. So I'm fine with that one. But it's cool to see additional material, and I really like the first track they released. The thing I enjoyed the most was actually, the off-the-cuff comments at the beginning of the song. When you hear them fooling around in the studio, I think that's great if they can leave that kind of stuff on. I don't know if it's Paul or Gene doing some sort of noise there in the beginning. I like that, and
that's Gene.
That's Gene. And as Julian mentioned, the solo is of course great. And in honor of Ace, it's a great track to put out. Just go and listen to that one. But just like Spotify, I'm from Sweden and I use Spotify, so I think I'll enjoy this one digitally. I'm looking forward to the Asylum and Animalize box sets, and those I might get, the real stuff for. But I'm enjoying listening to the music. I'm not into, a big book about Dress to Kill. I think I know most of the stuff I need to know about Dress to Kill. But I do understand that some fans want that stuff, and it's great that they finally released this one, and I'm all for it. So keep them coming. Keep me coming, keep them coming. And and then hopefully they'll release live in a month or two. So great stuff.
All right. So,
Julian, can I ask you one thing? Mm-hmm. Sorry. I think it might be interesting to get your opinion on this too. I mean, as a talking point, people were talking about the Alive box set next, and when will that come out? Blah blah blah. But the question I have for you is that a lot of people, including myself, mentioned that they have Kobo and they have the Davenport. Is it? I guess for this one, the Iowa show or whatever.
Yeah, this is Kobo and the first show of Davenport.
Yeah. So I was just curious why they would have took those shows out of an Alive set, put it on here, and not have just had that all as a total complete version of Alive. You know what I mean? What do you think the mindset was on doing that?
Well, I think you have multiple ways that you can approach, celebrating albums. You
Mhm.
could just do an Alive box set and package up Kobo, Cleveland, the two Davenports, and Wildwood, and there you go. That's your Alive
Mhm.
box set. Now, should Dress to Kill be ignored? I don't think so. I think it's a meaningful album in the catalog. So when you look at the material that they have, and I don't know what they have, I don't know if they've got all of the shows, or whether all of the shows were usable. Just because they were recorded doesn't mean they're viable for commercial use. So my guess would be is they look at what they have and they balance it between what they want to do. And what they want to do, number one, is make money.
Mhm.
So if there is another box set separately with other shows from this repackaged in some way, and I know Eddie Kramer has made some comments about what might potentially also be coming,
Rehearsal.
then it's business. It's a matter of business. I'm okay with it because I think Dress to Kill needs to be framed. I'm that long-winded monologue I did for the members channel, I went into some of the detail about the demos on disc 2. So I think that has made it worthy of Dress to Kill being its own box set. And just I'm sorry, the moment I saw this, that looks spectacular. Yeah, that makes me very, very happy. Every fan's going to have a different opinion. I mean, some fans would just be like, give me 5 raw shows. I don't even care if Eddie mixes them. And then I listen to, say, a flat, like I talk about in the Burning Up with Fever reference mix compared to the version that they released on Thursday.
Yeah.
Massive difference. I don't want to just listen to a flat reference release from 1975. I want Eddie Kramer to go back and put the effort in to make it work. So I think it's a win-win situation, but it's also a win-win-win in that the record label has to win financially in order for us to win as fans, and they're going to come first before us.
Thank
Does
you.
that answer the
Thank
question?
you. Thank you, Julian.
And just for anyone who needs to know, in my opinion. Because again, I don't work for the record label. I don't have any insight into their mindset. That's just a guess of how I would approach it. So I forgot to do one thing. I forgot to ask you your favorite costume worn by Ace Frehley.
I
So
know
let's
that
wrap
right
up.
away. My favorite one easily is the Hotter Than Hell tour, that V-shaped thing that he had on there. The very first time I saw that, I was like, wow, that looks really cool. I thought that was one of the most flashiest, kind of coolest thing. And mainly because, too, because Winterland was one of the shows that really impacted me as well. Like I thought that show was fantastic. So I always connected those two things together. So, and it's early, you know what I mean? You can still see the sort of, they're still working on things. They still haven't quite gotten to the final vision of what they wanted in their stuff. But I always loved the Hotter Than Hell. I know Daniel's shaking his head, thinking that I'm some foolish Canadian with my selection. But I have a soft spot for that. I'm curious to hear what Daniel would think.
Yeah, we all appreciate different things, but I think that's something that a 6th grader would do in a papier mâché course, trying to create something. It to me, that's his worst costume, but it's cool that some fans enjoy that one. To me, it's actually the last Kiss costume that he ever wore in his original stint in Kiss. That's my favorite. The Creatures of the Night / the Elder costume. It's kind of toned down. It's a throwback to the early costumes that he wore, in '74.
And they're like running shoes, boots, those things.
Yeah. I don't like the shoes. I don't like the shoes, but we're talking the costume now.
Yeah.
And I guess the shoes are part of the costume, but the shoes are not good. But that the bolt going down his chest. And he always used some sort of shoulder pads. I guess he didn't have shoulders like me or Paul Stanley. He needed some, extra stuff on the shoulders. Some reinforcement, but it's not like on the dinosaur costume where he wears the big V thing. It's a pretty subtle. You don't even notice them if you don't pay attention. So I like that one, and I like black and silver. Not all those colors he wore during the dinosaur tour. Even though if you're into Marvel comics or DC comics, that might turn you on. But I like the simpleness of the final costume that he wore during the Elder. It was the best costume by far when it comes to the Elder. I mean, I kind of liked Eric Carr's one as well. Pretty simple, but that costume, and I have to say, also give some props to Tommy Thayer when he wore that one on one of the later tours. It looked great once again. So it was great to see that costume worn once again. So the Elder / Creatures costume, what a great costume.
All right, Ken, which Love Gun costume do you like the best?
I know. I do like the Love Gun one because that was really the first one.
I thought you were going to be definitely in with that because that was your first album. But what is
yeah,
it?
but then I've come to like some of the
Just
earlier
go.
ones too, like the one from the Dress to Kill era. I think is a really cool outfit where he had the kind of the rings, but they were kind of pointed straight up, and then the lightning bolts are going across his chest, and then the lightning bolts are also going down his legs. I thought that was a really cool one, but they were all really actually good, even from the beginning. So, but yeah, Love Gun's kind of a special one. It's more Star Trekky to me. Really the most shiny kind of spacey kind of look. So, but yeah, it's kind of like moon boots on that one too, right?
Yeah,
The puffiness to those, even the puffiness here, but
They're
the
like
puffiness
Uggs.
on the boots is cool. You know, you could think, oh, you could probably kind of just float in there. You know, kind of like in
bouncy
Phantom
boots.
of the Park or whatever.
I had put in the chat earlier that Elder was mine when someone, and I don't remember who it was, sorry, reminded me to do this part of the topic. And Daniel's gone with the Elder now, and I've had time to rethink the costume. Love Gun Alive 2 for me.
That's a good one.
Ken already said it. Moon boots. When I moved to America in
They were
December
pretty cool.
'78, you know, those images of moon boots were everywhere. Moon boots were the rage at the end of the 70s as I moved to the States. So that costume just resonates. I just had that little zap come together and connect. That's got to be it today. I could easily go with his silver suit from '78. I could easily go with his very first costume, the leather. Just the raw leather look. I think it was Daniel also said, you know, black and silver, Kiss's colors, black and silver.
Yeah.
You know, leather and chrome, very much. But moon boots because of the emotional connection with moving to America the first time. I see one other comment before we go, and I'm sure Daniel would force me to address it. The book.
Yeah.
Right now, the book's on hold. Right now, we're not doing any. The book. Forget the book right now. We are mourning Ace, and we will definitely finish it. That's all I'll say on that. But I don't want to talk about the book while we're talking about Ace.
But I think that's what people want to know, if it will be a book or not. But you're saying there will definitely be a book.
It is a book. It's a 600-page, 500-page. I don't know how many pages it's going to be when it's all gone through the design. It is a book. I don't want to talk about it today because
but
I'm only talking about Ace.
Yeah, but people just want to know, is it dead in the waters or is it coming out?
Nope. We will update information very soon, but for now I only want to think about Ace and his passing and him being laid to rest, and everyone coming to terms with what has occurred. That is more important than any box set. That is more important than any book. That is more important than anything. And that's a nice way to end this episode. I want to really just give everyone a huge thanks for joining us today. You know, you've been a massive audience. You've been wonderful with all the input that you've given us. It's really helped. I didn't know if I was going to burst into tears during this episode. I feel them in my eyes this whole episode, but I've seen myself smiling on the screen, and that was the medicine that this disease needed today.
Julian, didn't I tell you previously, before we started, Julian was really down. And I said, this is the medicine that you'll need And I think it was.
It is.
Yeah.
And what did I say before we went on the air? I said I don't want to do this show today.
Yeah.
But I am glad that we've done this show
Yes.
today. And I'm glad to sit here and talk about primarily Ace. We had to obviously cover the box set. But go check out the other podcasts who will be podcasting. Eddie Trunk did a 3-hour special. You can be sure that Podcast Rock City is going to step up and do something. You could be sure that Three Sides will. That Shouted Out Loud cast. Am I missing any of the core Kiss podcasts? Kiss Nation, Pascal, and
Royce.
Podcast Rock City.
Podcast Rock City. I would never forget the number one podcast in the universe, Podcast Rock City, the first one I mentioned. I'm not having Joey Casada come after me to remind me. Check out check out, it may not be your podcast. Everyone's got some medicine. Every podcast is going to be offering up their own take on what has happened. And maybe we can find some solace in sharing
Cherry
if only
medicine.
for an hour or a little bit. Yeah. Have some cherry medicine. All right, let's leave it there. Thank you, Kiss Army. God bless Ace Frehley. And again, condolences to all of Ace's loved ones. Here's to you, Curly. I'll see you soon. Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the message board and discuss the topics we've broadcast today. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you've listened to this show, and a like would very much be appreciated. We hope you'll join us again, but until then, remember, life's a radio. Turn it up to 10.